No, I just called him. I just called him Uncle Al.
Yeah.
That's when I first met him, people were calling him Uncle Al. So I thought, well, we'll call him Uncle Al. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, tell me about. You told me a little bit over the phone the other day, but sort of tell me again. I just talked. This records what you and I are saying, so I'll have notes and everything. So, tell me about your service.
Well, when I was about 12, I decided I wanted to be a pilot and I wanted to be a soldier.
Why? What happened at 12?
I don't know.
You just saw airplanes in the air and said, I want to do that?
Yeah, and I lived in a town where we had a National Guard horse cavalry outfit for the National Guard. And I thought that was great.
What town was that?
Mineral Wells.
Mineral Wells, okay.
Best town in Texas to be from.
I know. I know. I had some college classmates from Mineral Wells.
Who did you have?
His name was Russ Pate. P-A-T-E. He's about my age, which would be about 58 or so.
Well, the situation there would be that I probably went to school with his grandfather.
Maybe so.
Just about that way.
Maybe so, or his dad or something like that.
Well, the thing is, it was a very small town, and then during the war they put Camp Walters there.
Right.
And that just grew the town.
I had a girlfriend from there. I said girlfriend, we dated a little bit in college. Her name was Linda Ward. W-A-R-D. And she was from there also.
Wards.
Huh?
I don't remember.
Don't know Wards? Okay. Well, it's a bigger town than we thought. There's two people you didn't know.
Well.
Anyway, go ahead. Yeah. So go ahead.
And you could get ROTC in schools, and so I decided I'd go in and go to a school where there was ROTC. And I wound up getting a commission. And also, when I was a kid, I learned to fly.
Now, what school did you go to?
What?
What school?
Went to a place called Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia.
I've heard of Riverside.
Premier was a fabulous school. And high school and junior college and college.
So you went to high school there?
High school and junior college.
I went to military high school. I went to TMI in San Antonio.
You went to TMI.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, you're not old enough. I
graduated.
You couldn't get a commission though.
Well, no, you could get not a commission. You could you take the junior ROTC, and I think they told you that you could enter straight as a PFC.
Yeah. Well, in our days, we finished. We were 24-hour a day, year-round military, including tactics and the whole shooting match.
Right. And
you went to school for 3 years and went to summer camp, then went your 4th year, and you got a second lieutenant's commission. And then you hung around. I took some high school and college both to get my 4 years in.
Right.
And I went across the stage. I got a certificate and got commission and orders to active duty at the same time.
Wow.
And 3 days later, I was running a rifle company at Camp Walters, of all places, my hometown. They just didn't have any officers.
Right.
I mean, the company I took over had been commanded by a first sergeant for 9 months. But anyway, you learn in a hurry.
What year would this have been?
42.
Okay.
And anyway, I put in to go to the Air Corps. And I wound up getting shipped out of there to the 104th Division, and the paperwork got lost. And we were training the 104th Division when Terry Allen came back and picked a bunch of officers to go to the 25th Division in the Pacific. And the next thing I know, I'm on New Caledonia with the 25th Infantry Division.
Wow. The fast track, yeah.
The fast track, and then of course the orders to school, to pilot flying school came through. But if you were overseas, it wouldn't ship you back unless your commander would let you go, and they were short, so they never let anybody go.
Right.
So I fought the First World War with the 27th Infantry Regiment, and ended up major operation was in Luzon. We went over the beach at San Fernando, cut Highway 5, set a roadblock in there, and were hit the first night by the Japanese 2nd Armored Division, trying to run to the north to cut off, make sure that the people down in Manila didn't get cut off. And one rifle company astride the road, and a couple of SPM-7 artillery, mobile artillery pieces off on the flank. We knocked out 92 armored vehicles, some mostly tanks. Their tanks were nothing.
Right.
And killed a couple hundred and captured a whole bunch more of them. Turned north to go up in the mountains, keep the Japanese in the north from coming down and getting in behind everybody. And the regiment set the still existing record for the number of consecutive days for a unit to be in constant contact without any relief whatsoever at 162 consecutive days.
This is the 25th?
The 27th Infantry Regiment of the 25th Division.
Okay.
And got dinged a couple of times on the way up. Go back and they jab a penicillin needle in your butt and
Send you back.
yeah, in your hind end and
Yeah.
slap a bunch of sulfa on you. And when you quit bleeding, why they took you out to the front gate, told you where your outfit was, and and you waited until something came along and hitchhiked a ride and went back to work. But that was the way that went.
What were your dings?
I got one in the back, got slivered from artillery shell. Actually, it was a sliver of wood out of the tree.
Right.
And the other one was a bullet in a crease in the leg. Just enough to bleed a little bit, and both of them bleed a little bit, and get a couple of decent meals. While you're
And you got that medal in the middle.
What?
And you got that medal in the middle for that.
Yeah, I
Right?
got a couple of those.
You got a couple of those?
Yeah. And I went into Japan, stayed there for a little while, and I had intended to be career. So I got back, I decided I didn't want to fight another war in a foxhole, so I put in for Army Liaison Pilot School.
But you still hadn't flown yet to this.
I still had not flown for the service.
Right. Did you know how to fly yet?
Yeah, I learned to fly as a kid with
Okay. So,
one of Peck's bad kids up there, the ones that were never going to amount to nothing, hanging around the airport and washing airplanes and
right.
all that garbage.
And they let you fly.
So
you knew the basics of how to keep. You knew how to keep the wings level. And
I sure I knew how to make forced landings.
Okay.
I knew how to make forced landings.
Those are your propellers.
Yeah, those are evidence of an ill-spent youth.
Oh my goodness.
Well, hell's bells in those days. If you got 65 hours out of an engine before it quit you, it was a miracle. Back before World War II.
Right.
But anyway.
So go ahead. So you went back and then you put in for
what they call liaison pilot school. What that was flying Piper and Stinson light airplanes over the front and adjusting field artillery, giving surveillance. One of the better kept secrets of World War II. Observation, of course. Your enemy, of course, is the first thing, the most important thing you have to have, know where he is. And the Army, over the objections of the Air Corps, succeeded in talking the War Department into letting them have Piper Cubs and Stinson L5 aircraft. And it would fly over the front, observe the enemy and see where he was, and then shoot field artillery at him. Or at the same time would talk with the infantry units on the ground. And if they were under heavy fire and could figure out where it was coming from, they would call you, you'd go find the spot, and then direct the artillery for that. And that was the way that worked. Also, you fly behind the lines looking for routes, looking for people, tank columns and things on the road. You could also get in contact with the Air Corps and tell them where they were. So, just basically observation. Of course, it was a little bit hairy when you're flying a 65 horse engine with a 45 under in your armpit. And The rest of them were shooting 40 millimeter ACAC guns at you.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was what I decided I wanted to do. So I went to school.
Where'd you go?
San Marcos over here. And they were also coming out with the first helicopters at that time. And I went on to helicopter school. And then went to the 2nd Infantry Division in Fort Lewis, Washington. And went up there. By that time, I had enough rank when I got in there. When I took over and was the division headquarters company aviation officer, and working with the headquarters. In
What rank were you now?
I was captain at that time. Yeah, pretty senior captain. And stayed there until the December of 49, and was shipped to Japan and wound up in the 24th Division, and was the headquarters company aviation commander for the 24th when the war broke out. And our units, the 24th Division was the first division over there. And of course the aircraft went over immediately, and all kinds of reconnaissance, keeping track of where the hell the North Koreans were coming from, and trying to interfere with them wherever we could go. That's a big country, and we only had a few people. So if we weren't going to get outflanked every time we turned around, we had to keep track of where they were. So we just put a screen of aircraft up over there, watching all the roads and railroads and stuff like that. North Korea's had a fairly decent little air force for about the first week.
Right.
And of course the 51s and the 80s took care of that in a hurry, but we got messed with a little bit. But I lost one boy to an aircraft shoot down, and stayed there on the Kum River back to the Nakhtong, and then sat there for about 2 months while we shoot them up as they tried to, while they were just beating their heads against our line until we shoot them up and the Air Corps cut off their supplies. And
now, were you flying? I want to be clear. Were you flying this Piper at the time, or were you in helicopters?
No, I was flying fixed wing at the time. We didn't have any helicopters in there at that point in time. They didn't get in there until the first helicopters got in there, I think, in now the Navy and the Marine Corps and the Air Force had a few old Sikorskis, but they didn't work on the front lines with the Army. We got our first 13s in there in, hell, I guess it was probably January or February of '51. And anyway, they were all medevac.
Right.
We didn't use any of them, any helicopters. We didn't have any gunships. This was before they got gunships and everything.
Right.
On them. A few of the boys, I think, strapped.
They were all medevac. Kind of like you saw on MASH. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Same with any H-13A, B, and C's.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And but they, as I said, they were medevac helicopters.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, one of my best friends set the record. He evacuated 390 some odd casualties over there, and so we're both in the Army Aviation Museum over there.
So your daily duty now, were you still based out of Japan?
No.
Where were you based out of at this time?
The closest rice paddy to the guns.
You were just in tents.
Wherever we could put our wheels down.
Right.
And that was on roads or gullies or riverbeds or wherever we could. We stayed as close to the front as we could. We tried to stay not over 10 minutes behind the units that were under fire. If they got in trouble and needed help, we figured if it took us over 10 minutes to get there, and that included warming up,
then
we were too far back.
Too far back. Where'd you sleep? In your airplane or in
pup tents or under the wings of the airplane, or wherever we had to. Sometimes we got in there. We spent what the hell was the name of that dang town? We spent, I think, almost a month in a riverbed right next to a MASH hospital. We ate with them and lived with them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we also flew casualties out for them back to Japan, and we'd go to Japan and pick up whole blood and bring loads of blood back. You did anything that you had to do to help out.
Yeah, to keep the guys fighting, to support them.
Yeah, support them the best you could. Try to keep them alive and keep yourself alive.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you could. And that was that part of it of my life.
Right. How long did you serve in Korea?
Went over in June, came back out in January of '51.
June of 49?
Yeah, for 50.
June of 50, okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, right there.
49 is when you went to the school in San Marcos, right?
No, 47 I went to school in San Marcos.
Yeah.
Went to the 2nd Division in 48.
Yeah.
To Japan in 49.
Okay.
To Korea in 50.
Mm-hmm. Back
From Korea in 51. Went to Japan and, actually, I got promoted up to I Corps, the next higher level unit. And then they shipped me back. We started getting some new airplanes, called them L-19s, Bird Dogs,
mm-hmm.
which was an all-metal. They were absolutely fabulous airplane. Matter of fact, there's a picture one of them right up there with me and the pipe I had in my mouth when I took the picture. But
what year was that taken?
That was taken in 51, in about probably October or November of 51. I had to go back over there and set up the training school and the ferry command to bring these new airplanes that were being shipped over.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first batch off the line. First 100 of them that were made were crated up and shipped to the Far East, and they sent them to a place called Kisarazu, which is an island off of Yokohama and Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
It was a naval base, air base, and they got them in there and assembled them. But nobody had ever flown one. They were 3 times the airplane of anything that we'd ever had before. And so anyway, I got shipped back and set up that ferry command, and to get the pilots that were coming in and get myself trained and a couple of other guys trained. We had to just get in them and read the books and go out and fly them and get competent enough to be able to instruct the next people.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd get them in and get them trained, and every time we'd get 10 people trained, well, we'd take off and fly them all the way down from Yokohama to Kokura
mm-hmm.
on South Island of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd fly them across the water to Korea and turn them over to the people over there. Come back, fly some more, train some more, fly some more. We did that with the first 100 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that job done, and they sent me back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and wound up as a fixed wing instructor in one class, and then as a fixed wing instructor in helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got first time I ever had a position instead of a job. I wound up in the what they call the standardization flight, which is where you taught the instructors to instruct. Get to keep everybody teaching the same way.
Right.
So that you could go take these people out and test them, and you didn't have to try to figure out why this guy was doing this because his instructor did something else. You couldn't do it with 100 people instructing.
Right. Was this still at Fort Sill?
That's at Fort Sill.
Okay.
And in the fall of '52 was right at the height of the polio season.
Mm-hmm.
And I wound up catching a case of polio.
Uh-huh.
I was a major for that time. And wound up at Brooke Army Hospital for a year. And it cleaned out my left side pretty well. That would have ended my career, except that a couple of buddies up in the Big Marble Foxhole were working with helicopters going. By that time we had enough of them going, and they were reorganizing them into the National Guard and the reserves. So I stayed on, went over to Austin, into what they call the Texas Military District headquarters over there. And my job was to go out and recruit people out of the National Guard and out of the reserves to go to school, get them back in, and then organize the units that they were going to fly in. As an example, I had a Transportation Corps Heavy Lift Battalion. The headquarters was at Fort Worth, and the units were scattered out in other different towns around there. I'd get that going. So even though I had 2 3s in my profile and was nominally unfit for duty, anyway, they figured I could get the job done.
Right.
And when the time came up for the next promotion, I couldn't pass the physical exam, and I said, to hell with you guys. And I'm not going to do the job if you won't pay me for it.
Right.
So I got out, and
so your total
that
service
was in '57.
in 57?
Yeah. So I was on duty, unfit for duty for 4 years. But,
Right.
But,
Right.
Anyway, made a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Still get a lot of information that other people don't get.
So you were about 15 years in?
Out 14, almost 15.
I see. And served in both wars?
Yeah, both
163 straight days?
162.
62 straight days. And
I have a friend of mine, a classmate of mine, who was in the 44th Division in Europe, and they were in 140 some odd days.
Yeah.
And he was so proud of that.
Yeah.
The first liar doesn't have a chance. 162, you son of a bitch.
Well, all this ground time, and then later all this flying time, I got to think that there were some pretty hairy moments for you. I mean,
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
What can you recall as the...
As a hairy moment?
Yeah, I mean...
I can even show you the pictures of it.
Okay.
Oh, the hairiest, I mean, we picked up a few bullet holes here and there, but that was sort of impersonal. You couldn't see the guy and stuff like that. And in the World War II, you were in the jungle and nose to nose, but it was very personal, but you didn't really have much time to think about it. No extended period of time to think about anything.
Right.
But flying, from time to time, you can do that. In March of '51, I was leading a flight of those L-19s from Japan to Korea. And about 35 miles out at sea, my airplane quit me. And you look down, and that was the route where the sea lanes went, and all the Navy ships threw their garbage over, and it wasn't nothing but sharks. It was a line of sharks for 100 and some odd miles from Japan to Korea, and that was the line that we had to fly to get there. But anyway, that damn thing quit, and I look at those sharks, and I said, am I going to ditch this damn thing, or am I going to try to get it back to land? And by the time I got to land with it, I'd run out of air and everything else. But I managed to get it down and made a turn and landed it. And when I did, I put one wingtip in the water and got across, finished my turn, got on the slope on the beach, got the other wingtip in the sand, and the damn thing rolled to a stop and didn't break a thing. And I was not over a mile and a half from the airfield that I'd taken off of.
My goodness.
But I've got some pictures of that here somewhere.
I want to see what you've got.
Matter of fact, I had to write an article. That airplane, incidentally, happened to be the first one out of the production line that was made. And it's now hanging in the museum. in Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Is that right?
And I had to write up the article for it, which has been published. And hi, troops.
Hey, he's the guy with the story.
If you know whether you got anything about airplanes or not.
A little.
All right. Here's the airplane.
I think you can have that.
Troop. Here. Down. Stay. That's where the tail. Trooper, wait. Sit. Come here.
I've been loving on him too much.
There. Down. Stay.
So
That's the tail wheel.
yes, sir.
That's where one wheel had to hit, hop the rivulet, and all the way. Here, come here. Here. Down. Down. Stay. And managed to get her down the way, which is a hell of a piece of.
He's okay. Go ahead. I'll leave him. I'll put him over here. So this is where it landed.
That's where it ended up.
Yeah.
There's another picture.
Okay.
There it is. I landed an airplane on one wheel. If I'd have had both wheels down, you had to go spun out and go on the slope. I kept that airplane on that wheel. They had turned it to hook it up. But right in here you can see just a few track of tread. Looked like tread wear. But I kept that airplane on one wheel with the wingtip in the sand to keep her from ground looping and going into the sea and breaking up.
Is this you?
No, this is next picture. Next picture. That's me right there. Here everybody's walked around the thing, so.
How long did it take all these people to get there?
45 minutes. They had to go get a weasel to come down through the sand. So that was the hairy moment when you're trying to.
So this is where, and this you just got barely to the beach.
Barely got to the beach.
Which was a better option than landing with the sharks.
Oh yeah. Then there's the airplane now hanging over in Fort Rucker, Alabama, in the museum.
Same plane.
Yeah.
01327.
Yeah. And the story on that one is that they found it over there.
And it's still hanging there. It's hanging there right now.
Brought it back because it was the first one built. I just accidentally happened to climb into it, but it was the first one that was built, and so they brought it back to put it in the museum. And in early '90s, wife was still alive, and we were watching the PBS, and they had an article on and talked about the airplane. I looked up and saw that tail number. I said, "Hell, that's that my airplane. I flew the damn thing."
You just saw it was just on PBS?
On something like that, you'll remember those numbers.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So I came back and got my files, and I had copies of the pictures, all the accident reports and everything else that was made. The Signal Corps made all those pictures. And these are blow-ups of them. And so I got all that stuff together and put it in the car, and that was several years later. I used to go back and forth to the coast and back and forth to Florida a couple of times a year. And so one of these days I'll just jump off the road and go up there to the museum. It's about 60 miles off I-10. And finally did. Walked in and just threw the file down on the curator's desk, didn't even say a word. They opened the file and saw those pictures in there, looked at the tail numbers. That's our bird. They had no records whatsoever. When it came back from Korea, they had no records with it.
They just had a plane up there that they didn't know anything about.
All they had the airplane and the number, and the tail number. They could identify the airplane by a serial number, but no records of any kind. And about 2 years ago.
So I mean, after this, did you leave the plane? Did you ever? Was that the last you saw of the plane?
That was the last I saw the airplane. they took it up to the back up to the field up there and figured out what was the matter with it. Somebody had put 2 handfuls of grass in each one of the wing tanks. It had been sabotaged. And as I'm climbing out, the dirt and filter and crap off that came down and filtered its way through the carburation system.
Who sabotaged it?
What? Nobody knows. They never did figure it out. It was field in Japan, and they had Japanese guards that went around there.
Somebody that was still angry over the war?
Nobody else, and somebody was angry over something.
Still angry over
World War II, maybe, or who knows what, or could have been. There were lots of Koreans over there that had never left Japan. Mm-hmm. Could have been some guy that like the North Koreans. You don't know.
Is that the same plane there?
That's the same. No, this is a different airplane.
Okay.
This is just one that I was using to teach.
Is that a L-19?
That's an L-19.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that's.
And this is your account of.
That's the story that was published, and that's the story that's with the airplane over there now. There's an outfit.
They must have just been. The curator must have just been thrilled.
They went into orbit.
Did they take your picture? And is there a plaque now with it? With
this does not go in our. This doesn't get referred to in our. I'm also the oldest rated L-19 pilot by 7 years of anybody who's still alive that they've been able to find.
Right.
And anyway, they hung me in their Warriors department on the wall up there. But I don't want that discussed.
You don't want to discuss it what?
Yeah. In our interview.
Right.
I mean,
tell me exactly what you don't want discussed.
Anything about my exploits, nothing about getting hung on the Warriors wall.
Oh, okay.
Over there
in Florida.
In Alabama.
In Alabama, excuse me. Okay.
Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Okay. Because I don't want to lead you in any directions.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, we can talk about this.
They've got a bunch of my memorabilia and things like that, and I made up a case and set it up and put my record up there.
Right.
But
I mean, we can talk about this.
We talk about the airplane and about it being there, but not about the fact that I got personally involved on the wall.
No, that's fine. But we can we can use these pictures and things.
The cute part of this whole damn thing was that about 3 years ago, Colonel Mac Gibson, who had been with the second Cavalry Division on occupation duty in 1 and 62 in Korea. That airplane was in that division, and it was assigned to him. So he flew it, and all they know for sure about it is that it got there. What happened to it? And then the next positive thing is that it was known to be in the second Cavalry Division, and Mac Gibson flew it. And Mac came down to visit the museum, looked up and saw the airplane. He said, "Damn," that's my airplane. Where did it get there from, and all that. So the curators all grabbed him and patted him on the head and bought him a beer, and they went down and pulled all the records out. And he had remarked to them that he didn't know how the hell it ever got there, because it was the worst flying airplane he'd ever flown in his life. Said the damn thing wouldn't hold a trim and just worked a pilot's butt to death.
Yeah.
So they took him down and showed him these pictures. Well, there was no structural damage. Nothing broken. But one wing had been in the water and the other one had been in the sand. And just little things like this may have had something to do with the aerodynamics. You look at that, he's holy Christ. But that's the old bird.
But can we talk about your finally making the visit to Alabama?
Oh yeah, just nothing about the wall.
Nothing about the wall. Okay, I don't even know about that.
And no, I set up a trust fund for him over there.
Yeah.
I got some I didn't need. They, Bill Clinton cut all the damn money out for them over there, and they're having a hard time keeping their dioramas up and stuff like that.
Right.
So got a good friends.
Yeah. Yeah. But this was the L-19. This is, how long did you fly this plane for? I'm sure it says in here.
What? I mean, how long did I fly those?
The L-19, not this particular plane, but you went from one L-19 to another, is that right? Or
Yeah.
when you were done with this one?
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, when I got done getting the ferry command done, they shipped me back to Fort Sill, and I went on as an instructor.
Yes, sir.
But only for one class, and then I went to instructing in helicopters. But I got maybe 500 hours in or something like that.
Yeah.
All told.
Right. The 162 days on the ground at Luzon, is that right?
In Luzon.
That, what rank were you then?
I started out as first lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up company commander.
How many men under you?
167 when we went over the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Another 200 replacements. 21 of us got to Japan. Of the original 167.
Mm-hmm.
I got one platoon sergeant still alive. We discussed. Hit 5 times.
So you were hit.
Different war.
Right.
These people don't know what a war is.
Uh-huh.
They're sitting here squawking about 2,200 men dead. Our battalion lost that many in 30 days.
Exactly.
I have
Exactly.
the foggiest idea.
Exactly. I mean, compared to not just the number of Americans lost in World War II, compared to the number of Russians that were lost in World War II. I mean, the Russians lost many times more than we did.
That was their,
yeah, that was their
way. That was their way. They used men instead of ammunition.
right. Exactly.
As ammunition.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's horrible what's going on now, but this generation and even mine and the next one, they don't understand that the sacrifice. You were obviously you feel pretty fortunate that you survived both of these wars.
Oh, sure.
There's so when you got out, what was your career? What'd you do? What?
When I first went to service, I had a very good friend who was an old family friend, the ranking bird colonel, and he took me under his wing and he said, "Son," he said, "if you want to stay in," which is he knew I did. Don't count on Uncle Sam for anything. He said he'd make lots of promises and he'd deliver, but by and large, pretty much what he says. So he said, "You need to do some investing and keep some of your money. So you're just making $125 a month now, but you need to save a little here, save a little there. When you get it," he said, "be a capitalist." He said, at that time, AT&T was selling for $4 a share, and things like this. And so I did. And then when I went to flying, of course, I drew hazardous duty pay.
Right.
Didn't have any need for it.
Yeah.
I could eat off of that. So I put all my hazardous duty pay into investments,
And investments.
into securities for the entire time that I flew. Inherited a little bit, fortunately, which is always nice. Great to have an ancestor who is frugal.
Right.
You know, that's one of the nicest things in the world. But I've just been a private investor. Put
Good for
it
you.
away, and now it feeds me.
Yeah.
I've got enough retirement pay and stuff like that from
Right.
that I can eat well, but this lets me do what I want to do,
Yeah.
the way I want to do it. And if I want to do something for somebody else, I can.
Right.
Very fortunate. I have 3 had 4 kids, lost 1 to Vietnam.
Oh my goodness.
And the other 3 are successful beyond almost any stretch of the imagination.
Wow.
Just almost unbelievable. They're all college graduates, smart, work, diligent, socially acceptable at just about any level.
Where do they live?
Well, one of them's here, my daughter Candy, who's riding the horses up there, is David Caraba's wife, Gooseneck, and God knows what else, including Boston Colony and God knows whatever.
Right.
And the other is in Houston. Their husband is a major real estate developer. And God knows how many 100 Walmart drugstores for them on contract. And the other is a fellow, he's up there, he's up in the corner. He's a horseman. And
where's he
buys Hempstead.
In Hempstead?
Buys and sells and trains thoroughbred racehorses. Done wonderfully well with that.
So you had 2 sons and 2 daughters?
I had 2 sons and 2 daughters.
And your son that you lost in Vietnam?
CB.
Navy CB?
Yeah, he CB. And he got hit in the back of the head and created a, the hell they call it, and so anyway, got water, and he was supposed to live 9 months. He lived 9 years and had a blast the whole time. But they wound up having to put a shunt in his head and drain spinal fluid into his stomach, all kinds of crap. He said, "What the hell with it?" Lived 9 years and had a blast.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been fortunate.
Yes, sir.
Fortunate.
You lost your wife, is that right?
Yeah, I lost her 15 years ago.
What was her name?
Nancy.
Nancy?
Yeah. Yeah, right out there in that hall. We were walking down the hall, and she stumbled and fell on her face. I said, "What in the hell do you do that for?" She didn't wiggle.
She had a heart attack.
Heart attack, just blew it into mush. She was dead before she hit the floor. Reached down and put my hand on her. So, oh crap, there she goes. She's gone.
How old are you, sir?
84, be 85 in June.
Yes. And you still invest?
Very conservatively.
Yeah.
Very conservative.
Yes. Now, how many you have grandkids?
3 sons, 3 grandsons. They're all in college, doing wonderfully well.
Right.
Never had to bail one out or dry one out yet.
Yeah.
So.
But all your kids, and they're all nearby, right?
Yeah.
Houston, Hempstead, and here.
Houston, Hempstead, and here.
And here, so you get a lot of, you get to go visit them, and
well, I try to keep them at arm's length.
Yeah.
They don't need my problems.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems anyway.
Right.
No, the damn phone rings about 3 times a day, so
Yeah.
there's always somebody checking somewhere. And I'm very fortunate.
Well, you seem healthy.
Oh, I just got out of that MRI, and
Yeah.
the doctor.
What does he tell you other than quit smoking? Or does he tell you that?
Sanctimonious sons of bitches. Anyway.
Do you smoke that pipe though?
I smoke my pipe
Yeah.
and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Doesn't stink as bad as cigarettes.
Are you a member of the VFW?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
This damn dog's got a better story than mine.
Tell me that.
He's one of their poster boys. There he is up there.
Right?
And so they got a call one day about a year and almost 2 years ago that there was a dead dog down in the south of the county. Come pick him up. And one of the girls went down, and that was this dog. He had a load of bird shot in his right front shoulder, and he was down to skin and bones.
Go ahead if you want to answer that.
What's your major maladjustment?
If you ask Jack Upham about his nearly 15 years of military service, he'll be the first to tell you that his generation simply did what needed to be done. What needed to be done by all men and women who love their country. Nonetheless, his service in World War II and then in Korea were significant slices of his life. He was a ground soldier with the 27th Infantry Regiment at Luzon and then spent a record 162 consecutive days in combat without relief. Then in Korea, realizing his dream to be a pilot. A military career well served. I'm Tom Turbiville. This is Bravo Brazos Valley. Jack Upham got some training early, very early, in high school at Riverside Military Academy. And like so many of that era, after high school, it was the fast track. I mean the real fast track to service.
And being an ROTC school, I wound up with a second lieutenant's commission and walked across the stage, got some papers and orders to active duty at the same time. And 3 days later, I'm in Camp Walter, Texas, of all things, commanding a rifle company because they were short on officers that early in the stage. And the first sergeant had been commanding the company for about 9 months before. Very shortly thereafter, I wound up being sent to the 104th Division in Camp Adair, Oregon, and almost immediately out of there over to the South Pacific and on to New Caledonia, where the 27th Infantry of the 25th Division was in there training to go on further up the islands.
Jack Upham says that he knew a different kind of war that's even being fought today.
People today don't know what a war is. They really don't. We went on over the beach in Lingayen Gulf in San Fernando, went inland on the first day, cut the main highway north and south. That night we were hit by a regiment from the Japanese 2nd Armored Division. We knocked out 92 of their tanks and armored vehicles, killed a couple of hundred, captured a few, turned and went on north, uphill, into the highest mountains they had, to the only pass there was, for 162 consecutive days. It was like a meat grinder. You lose a few, they run a few in. You lose a few more, they run a few in. You lose your friends. After a while, you don't know who's your friend and who isn't.
Like we said, Jack Upham fought in 2 wars, World War II and Korea. Tomorrow he'll talk more about the Korean conflict. I'm Tom Turbiville. This is Bravo Brazos Valley.
If you are in need of legal services, please consider calling Meese & Associates, Attorneys at Law. Meese & Associates, an involved community partner. Meese & Associates, attorneys who care about helping you and helping our community. Call us at 846-9608. Licensed by the State Bar of Texas, not certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. Meese & Associates, Attorneys at Law, 846-9608.